All right, welcome everybody to the second traffic calming meeting for Cumberland Avenue. My name is David Greaves. I'm an engineer that works with Nashville's Department of Transportation on the traffic calming program. And we're meeting here virtually tonight on September 17th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Similar to the first meeting, we're going to start with kind of a quick overview of the program for anyone that maybe wasn't able to attend. But then we're going to talk about the work we've done since the last meeting, present kind of the more detailed construction plans we pulled together, and then talk about the balloting process and how the project will move forward after tonight. So to kick off that brief overview, what is the traffic calming program? This is one that focuses on residential streets. Generally, we prefer physical solutions to encourage lower speeds over significant lengths, so not like one block at a time, but a few at the very least. And then one of the primary goals of the program is speed reduction. There are 3 E's of traffic calming. Those are education, enforcement, and engineering. We have engineering bold and underlined here because Nashville's Department of Transportation has the greatest ability to affect the safety outcomes on our roadways with design. So certainly education and enforcement are important things that Nashville keeps doing, but we would like to provide a design for you that will have positive outcomes at all times rather than just when enforcement might be happening. One of the reasons that speed and speed reduction is so important here is because it has a direct impact on safety. And Vision Zero in Nashville is the idea that nobody should have to be killed or seriously injured on our public streets. So the traffic calming program fits into that by making our neighborhoods more safe, sort of in parallel to other programs in the department that focus on different street types. That's demonstrated by this infographic here. So if a pedestrian were hit by a car, they'd have a pretty good chance of surviving if they were going 25 miles an hour. But predictably, that chance of survival starts to go way down as speeds climb. So when we see a neighborhood street like Cumberland Avenue that has speeds kind of up in that 35, 45 mile end of the spectrum, that's a sign that we would really like to do something to create a safer environment for you all to live on. This is a really popular program. So in March of 2025, when Cumberland was selected for traffic calming, y'all were among a group of like 600 streets or so that have applied and not yet been selected. You can take a look at all of those on this traffic calming tracker map. That's at TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. And you can see the status of the Cumberland Avenue project, as well as every other street that has applied in Nashville. You'll also notice some dark blue lines. Those are projects that have been completed. And I know that y'all have a handful of those pretty close by. Anything that we're not able to handle with this project that y'all may still want to see, we encourage you to request through Hub. That can be signals, sidewalks, fixing a pothole, sort of anything on the spectrum of big to small. And that can be accessed by calling 311 or going to hub.nashville.gov online, or by using the mobile app. I've found that's the easiest way for me to use Hub, but any of those three work just fine. This is a map of the extents of the project. So we're doing the whole street all the way from Gallatin Pike to the park. We reviewed a kind of draft concept last time. We got a lot of really good feedback from you all about some other treatments you'd like to see, and I'll get into those when we take a look at the design. But yeah, as you can see, we've got DuPont, Roosevelt, Dueling Avenue are all existing traffic calming projects. So I imagine you're somewhat familiar with the tools that we're proposing tonight. Any questions about what I've covered so far before we jump into the proposed design? I appreciate that was a pretty quick run through the recap, but I think everyone on here was in our first meeting, so I don't want to take up more time than we need to.
Sorry, I'd just like to ask a question in terms of like a point of confirmation here.
Yeah, please.
It's probably no doubt my mistake. I thought I had seen a plat, or not a plat, um, a graphic, a map that indicated that the proposed traffic calming measures were to extend only as far east as uh, Delaware. So maybe I was reading that wrong. So this is to run the uh, entirety of Cumberland, even east of Delaware, to the park.
That's correct. We aren't proposing any like cushions east of Delaware, just because it would be hard to imagine a whole lot of speeding happening on that like little quarter block. But in terms of like the limits that were applied for and chosen, it's the entire street.
Okay, because that was going to be my question when I saw the original image. If it were to extend as far as the park east of Delaware, and say, for example, traffic cushions were selected for the other portion of Cumberland, would the absence of need for traffic calming cushions on the eastern part or east of Delaware, would that somehow have some implication as to what sort of measures were available for the portion between Delaware and Gallatin? I guess I'm trying to say if no traffic cushions are needed east of Delaware, is the conclusion therefore that no traffic cushions could be installed on the other portion? They have to be uniform?
Oh, no. And to answer that, why don't we just kind of take a look at the design itself? We'll be able to see it in detail in just a sec.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. Okay, so some of the tools that we identified for Cumberland Avenue in our concept design, and then based on some feedback we got in the first meeting, are speed cushions. To recap a little information about these, they're similar to speed bumps, but stretched out to achieve like a higher target speed. So we're not asking folks to go 5-10 miles an hour over these. We're really shooting for like the speed limit or just a little bit under. These have a width of 6 feet and come with gaps in between them. That's intentional, and the idea is that larger emergency vehicles should be less impacted than smaller personal ones. So these are kind of a middle ground between you know, calming the vast majority of traffic without you know, seriously inhibiting the ability for emergency response to do their job. They are made out of modular rubber pieces, so while they look like one big lump in the road, it's actually a bunch of smaller pieces, and they're all kind of individually bolted onto the asphalt. And that helps us keep these like very consistent over the entire county, and you know, hopefully for a bit quicker of an installation time as well. The reason that we rely on these so heavily is because we know that they work in achieving the program's goals. That's demonstrated by this limited study we did back in 2023, where we took before and after measurements on 6 different projects around Nashville, and we saw the average speed come down from 31 miles an hour to 22, and the 85th percent speed came down from 37 to 25. For anyone who doesn't remember from the first meeting, 85th percent speed is just kind of the number where 15% of people measured were going faster than that, and 85% were going slower. Something we did not propose in the last meeting, but we heard that y'all were interested in seeing it on Cumberland, is edge line narrowing. That was something that we left and told you that we needed to kind of look into to see like how narrow would be appropriate to go in this case. And what we are going to propose is 2 like 9-foot travel lanes, so they're going to feel pretty tight. But what that allows is for a couple feet on the edge of the roadway. And we're hoping that makes it a little more comfortable to walk on the pavement because we know that y'all don't have sidewalks. And we certainly want people to be able to walk, to the park or to Gallatin if you're catching a bus without, being too nervous about conflicting with vehicles. So we'll take a look at like exactly where that is on the plans, but I'm happy to, let y'all know that we were able to get this included in the design as well. And now we can take a look at the plans. So very similar to the concept design we presented, we've got 4 cushion locations identified. You'll probably notice that there's a bit of a larger space near Bixler Avenue. That's partially due to Bixler being a 4-way stop. So we've got people stopping there anyway. But there's also a bit of a hill just to the west. And that's something where we're not able to do cushions on parts of the roadway that are too steep. So we did our best to get those like as evenly spaced as possible, but it didn't, like work out perfectly. Let's see. So digging into some of the close-ups, you can see where these first 2 cushion sets are. We've got one pretty close to Gallatin, just to make sure that as folks are maybe turning off the higher speed road, they get a a reminder pretty soon that it's time to like slow down. You're in the residential area now. And then another set just to the east. You can see we've got that edge line narrowing going kind of from the intersection all the way up continuously. So it should be plenty visible as you're driving or walking on the street. And then as the road narrows to the east, we go from 3 cushions across to 2. We put as many as we can fit and maintain those gaps. And yeah, it looks like, so while this little stub of 3 houses or so is in the project, we didn't continue the edge line narrowing there. That's something that we can consider. I don't know if anyone on the call like lives on that portion, but as we were looking at this in our mind, we didn't imagine that section of street being fraught relative to the segments that we took our traffic readings on. But I do want to know if anyone here feels strongly that we made the wrong decision. I would gladly like to hear about it, I guess. And then the last page is just the kind of diagrams that show how those different cushion configurations lay out. So you can see we've squeezed a little bit to get 3 in when it's 24 and 25 feet wide, and then stretched them out as that roadway narrows. What we don't want is anyone like driving off the road to go around these. So when we've done that 2 cushion configurations, we've made a note that the signs should be placed pretty much even with the cushions, and we found that does a good job of discouraging folks from attempting to drive off the road. Those are the plans. Next, we're going to talk about the rest of the project's process, but before we do that, I want to pause and just see, is there anything about these that y'all have questions about or additional feedback, other thoughts?
Yeah, I'm curious. Where where do the white lines like end and start? Like around what street number or house number?
Yeah, so on the eastern end, it's all the way to Delaware Avenue, and then on the western end, it's to Gallatin Pike. Um, they don't continue through the intersections. That's just standard like roadway marking, but those are the extents. The only part of Cumberland that doesn't have them is the portion that sort of stubs into the park east of Delaware Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing.
And where the cushions are going in, are you guys putting up those little white bumper things so that they can't drive around them? You mentioned something, I didn't catch all of it.
Yeah, so we are not proposing any of those. We have three different configurations of cushions like throughout the project. The first two have three across and only leave like 2.5 feet of space on the edges. And generally, we haven't found that to have it also be necessary to put the white delineators in. We'll do those sometimes if the road is of a width that it's not super easy to prevent that. But we think that with using three cushions or by placing signs next to the cushions, that goal will be accomplished without the use of delineators.
Okay, and
Go ahead.
you go, Ron.
Yeah, back to the map. It looks like coming down the hill, the first Christian is at 300 Cumberland. Is that right? Somewhere around there.
Yes.
So that means from the top of the hill to that first cushion is probably about 150 yards. Is that about right?
That sounds about right. It looks like it's around 500 feet based on the scale here. And like I
Yeah.
mentioned, oh, go ahead.
Is there a reason why the first cushion coming down the hill is so far down versus it being at like 324 or right around there where the cars are accelerating on the downhill?
Yes. So the constraints that we're working around when we look for places to put the cushions are the grade of the road. So anything beyond like 6 to 7% is too steep for a cushion like this to be recommended. And then the second constraint that I think is doing a little more of the work here is we need to maintain a 15-foot clearance from driveways. So when we go out and visit the site, we're sort of keeping all of those things in mind and looking for what winds up being a fairly limited number of options on where cushions will like work and meet all of those criteria. And this cushion on the left is as close to Bixler Avenue as we could get without violating one of those criteria that we work around.
Yeah, okay.
That was my question too, because we see people get like literally to 50 miles per hour from Bixler
Exactly.
to about 300.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
what I would expect to see is coming down the hill at 50 miles an hour and putting on brakes when you get to 300 Cumberland.
Yeah, I mean, we will have these signs up. The hope is that they wouldn't want to like slam on their brakes at the bottom of the hill and might start decelerating. I can imagine in the current state, if you're at the top of the hill, you'll see kind of the straight shot of Cumberland and have very little pause about picking up speed. But I would like to think if you're headed like directly toward Cushions, um, even on the hill, they'd be less motivated to be going quite as fast. That would be the hope anyway.
right.
Yeah. That's an optimistic hope. Yeah.
Thanks for adding the white lines. I really appreciate that. That's wonderful. And then last thing I wanted to ask is it, I've seen some places have pedestrian signs. It'll like say you watch for pedestrians. Is it possible to add something like that at Bixler Ave where the 4-way stop is?
That's a good question. It's not something that we typically will do. Is it, do you mind if I just kind of ask, is it like the crossing of Bixler that you're concerned about? Or I guess what, is there a more specific
Oh yeah.
problem that,
Yeah. Well, I walk my 6-year-old daughter to the park all the time, and it's particularly like we just have to watch for cars. So I really appreciate the white line. That's super, super helpful. But yeah, I'm a little bit concerned that people are just going to speed from Bixler to the first cushion. So I was thinking if we had a pedestrian sign, maybe that would help as a deterrent. So they're actually watching for kids.
yeah, I'll look into that. It's, there are like guidelines on what types of signs go where and in which situations. So what I can do is confirm if this would be one that is appropriate. If it is, I don't have a problem adding it into the design.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Understood. Thank you.
There was talk at one point of adding a traffic circle around Bixler. Is that off the table, or what's the thoughts on that?
It is. So when we evaluate traffic circles, we basically need the existing pavement to be large enough for vehicles to like make those maneuvers. And in this case, that intersection just is not able to fit a circle in there, and then also like leave enough room for vehicles to make those left turns around it. Not like the smallest of vehicles, of course, but as you get into like a larger delivery truck, for instance, it would cause issues in that regard.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think there was another thing you talked about, like kind of, I don't know how to describe it. It was like around each of the corners, there was like the white line created like a bulb or something, a little like kind of.
Yeah. Bulb outs. In a similar vein, we typically do those when the existing asphalt is like substantially larger than it needs to be. And if we were to do bulb outs here, they would be like very close to the existing edge of pavement and not really be reclaiming a lot of space. So we decided that it wasn't necessarily the best approach at that intersection.
Okay, thank you for explaining.
Sure. Are we ready to move on to process? Like what happens next?
I'm going to squint.
I'd like to just say and second what's been said before by Ty and others. If there is no indication between Bixler and the first set of humps going towards Gallatin of some sort of, I mean, obviously experience will show drivers as they take that route that there's something coming up. But, a 16-year-old kid that just got his driver's license and wants to turn Cumberland from Bixler to Gallatin into the Indy 500, as he goes that first time from Bixler to the first sign, I think there will be nothing preventing him from, flooring it like they do now, and that's all it will take for somebody to get hit and killed or property damage or whatever. So I would second the request that some form of indication between Bixler, the first set of humps, be studied as to prevent that outcome from transpiring.
Got it. Appreciate you sharing that, and that definitely helps me kind of better understand that y'all consistently feel that way. Is it? Remind me. So it sounds like a good amount of traffic is coming from Bixler and then turning onto Cumberland to access Gallatin. Is that generally right?
That'd be correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. And is it more in the westbound direction than the east, or is it kind of depends on the time of day?
Westbound because they pick up the speed going down the hill.
Okay, yeah, I see. So it's not as much of a
Yeah.
problem when you're going uphill, but going down the hill, it's much easier to pick up speed
Yeah.
without even realizing it.
And I think
Um,
just anecdotally here, I've not done some full-blown survey, but given that adjacent streets already have traffic calming measures, folks
mhm.
who drive in this area know that Cumberland not only does it have a fantastic hill that allows you to build up speed as you go on your way to Gallatin, but doesn't have anything preventing, like the other streets, uh, the sort of speeding that we're trying to curtail. So obviously that'll be different once the cushions are installed, but definitely people certainly circumnavigate the extant traffic calming measures on adjacent streets in order to get to Cumberland so that they could speed.
Yeah, you were definitely not alone in sharing that feedback, and we're looking into both like measuring the degree to which that happens, as well as brainstorming some ideas on how we might address it proactively. But yeah, thank you for sharing, because it is all valuable information as we design this project, but then also think about the program in general. Um,
I assume the 5 to 6 degree rule of thumb, not to put cushions on 6 to 5 degrees. Does that have to do with rain or anything
um,
like that?
I don't know if it's rain necessarily. The warranty on the cushions themselves, um, I think they've expressed that it has to do with the fact that they're bolted onto the pavement. So when a car strikes a cushion on a flat surface, like all the force is essentially going down. But if it is tilted, um, some of that goes sideways, and the bolts are not able to hold them down in quite the same way if it's like getting pushed down the hill as if it were, rather than like getting pushed into the ground. So in one degree, it's because of the manufacturer, although there's also that same guidance when you look at cushions and humps that are made out of asphalt. I have a feeling that has more to do with just making sure that vehicles like can keep control. Um, just interested in the really like minuscule percentage of people that are not going to slow down appropriately for these. We still want them to be safe. These are intended to be uncomfortable if you drive over them too fast, but we're not looking to like cause any problems with the traffic. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm still stuck with the speed at which people will come down Cumberland going westward towards Gallatin, that they still pick up a tremendous amount of speed. So I'm kind of wondering what the speed bumps are spec for, how many miles per hour that they
Uh,
can tolerate.
yeah. So in terms of the speeds of actual vehicles, they're designed to be really quite durable and stout. Now, the manufacturer of these devices, um, they will warranty it for streets with speed limits up to 30 miles an hour, but that is with the understanding that not everyone is going the speed limit. So they're not expecting like every single person to be going one particular speed, but yeah, they're designed for local roads with speed limits of 30 miles an hour and less.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. My uneducated opinion is you need a third speed bump between Bixler and the next speed bump going west, which is at what, 261 Cumberland.
Got it.
Okay,
Yeah, I
thank you.
can look into it. There are fairly strict guidelines on like how close we put these both like together and to stop signs. So if it's like less than 200 feet from the intersection there, that would be a no-go. But I can take a second look and just like really make sure that we've exhausted the opportunities to have slowing here, just because it does sound like you all are concerned about this hill in particular. If not that, what we can do is look into the watch out for pedestrian signs, and it may not like physically affect anyone, but if we feel like it's going to be worthwhile, we could also propose one of the radar feedback signs to display one's speed compared with the speed limit, and that might help as well.
Okay, well, I appreciate you looking at it a second time. Yeah.
Of course, that's why we're having these meetings. We want to hear what you all think about our work, and ultimately this is a project for you all, so we want to make sure you're happy with it.
If you don't mind just lobbing one more brick towards the
Please.
construction of the wall that is, I think, now rather unanimous in that we would prefer to have speed cushion between Bixler and the first proposed cushion going west at 261 Cumberland Avenue. Anyone who lives in this neighborhood knows that corner of Cumberland and Bixler, and it takes different manifestations, sometimes different sides of the street, different kids, but that is a hot spot for bus pickup in the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
There's kids usually there at the eastern corner of eastern side of Bixler and Cumberland, waiting for the bus, departing from the bus. Yes, there's a stop sign there. Yes, I think we've established that stop sign is interpreted as optional for many who are driving along Cumberland Avenue. So just when you're doing the considerations, I want you to also have that information on hand. School buses in the morning, bus stops, those kids, I think, would also benefit from additional traffic calming measures on that little stretch. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great to know, and thank you for sharing. As you can see, we do look out for where WeGo stops are, but obviously school buses are a little bit less visible to us. So that will absolutely be considered as we take a second look at this. Are we ready to kind of move on to next steps in the project?
Yes.
All right. And we can come back to whatever we need to at the end if need be. So to recap how just a general traffic calming project works, we started with an application, did that prioritization and selection process. We've had neighborhood meeting 1 that was around a month, maybe 2 months ago. As Ron noticed, we have done our field review. So we did a site visit and took measurements, really found like specific locations where cushions work, refined our concept design based on feedback we got in our first meeting. And then now we are here at the red circle. So as you can see, there's only 2 steps left. We need to do the online ballot. We'll talk about how that works specifically in just a minute. And then should it be successful, that being 66% of people voting favorably, it'll move into the construction queue. And it probably will be a little while between like approving the project and it getting done. That is just due to the high volume of other traffic calming projects that we're excited to put in. But once it passes the ballot, it is, you know, destined to be built, even if it takes, you know, somewhere between 8 and 10 months. A little bit about the ballot. We're going to send out mailers that are very similar looking to the ones that invited you all to this meeting. So be on the lookout for those. They do display instructions on how to fill out the online form, as well as a QR code. And we say like how long or like when the voting closes. We shoot for roughly 6 weeks, usually like erring on the higher side. And the idea there is just to make sure that, you know, anyone is able to receive this postcard in plenty of time to review the plans, you know, talk with their friends and neighbors, and you know, get online and vote. But we put the deadline on there just to make sure nobody misses it. Also on that mailer is a unique ID. So on the form, it'll ask for that. We basically use that to just make sure that no one's like voting twice or sending it to all their friends and having them vote. So it's just a way to keep the tallying secure. And yeah, already covered. 66% of respondents voting yes is successful. So it's not every like property. It's just it's like a regular election where your vote counts if you vote, not if you don't say anything. That's neither a yes or a no. So some specifics about who is getting these mailers. Basically, we send them to the owners of residential properties, churches, and schools. Each owner only gets one. So if you owned like 2 lots on the street, you would just get the one mailer. Any lots without buildings, we don't send them to. You don't vote just for like owning an empty plot. And then businesses are ineligible. So I'm failing to remember if the lots on Gallatin are like commercial facing the pike, but if they are, we'll exclude those. We're asking like the residents of Cumberland what y'all are interested in, and we're just sending these to the properties that like touch the affected right of way, Cumberland Avenue. So you can be on a corner, like if your address was Bixler, but you touch both Bixler and Cumberland, you get a ballot. And then want to highlight this point at the bottom in bold. If you think that you should have gotten a ballot and didn't, or like your neighbor did, feel free to just reach out and let us know. We've got like the list of everyone and their codes, so we're more than happy to just like tell you what your code is and get you to vote. Because we know that, you know, sometimes postcards coming in the mail, mixed results on actually like reading it. In my case, I throw a lot of mail in the trash, so totally understand that happens quite a bit. So anyway, it seems like y'all know each other pretty well. I would just recommend, you know, if one of you gets the card, check in with your neighbors and make sure they know what's going on. And that's all I've got. Oh, see, Willie's got your hand raised. Feel free to speak up.
Okay, thank you. I was curious to know the source. I'm guessing it's the tax assessor's website.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the source from whence you guys gather the addresses of the owners. And I ask mostly because clearly and increasingly so, properties along Cumberland Avenue are owned by folks who don't live there. So, for example, if we were to go back, and I don't want you to have to do this, but when we started this process, there was a parcel there at the very corner of Delaware and Bixler, which now contains 3 structures. And I believe the parcels are owned by 2 different LLCs. So my question, having sort of satisfied that you guys consult the tax assessor's website to get the addresses to which to send the ballot postcards, will you, for the lack of a better term, consult the most recent tax assessor's website listings so as to know, if there were a property that were conveyed in the interim, you guys know where to send those voting or ballot cards, because there might not have been someone to send when we first started, like when we first started getting the notices about the community meetings, or those people might have changed in the interval. So I would encourage you to, get the most recent copy of the tax assessor's information, which I know you will, because some of these properties have been purchased or conveyed in the interval.
Yeah, everything you said is exactly right. We use the Register of Deeds records. The screenshot you're seeing is an online tool that, like, the planning department uses as well to send mailers out. And we do this exercise for the meeting 1 mailers, and then do it again for meeting 2, and then do it a 3rd time for the ballot, for that very reason, just because we know that people move in. We want to make sure that we're including the most up-to-date information at each of those phases.
Okay, great. There's a Metro employee here in our house, and I knew you guys would do a great job because Metro does a great job. So thanks.
Well, really appreciate that. Any other questions?
I just want to second that you're doing a really great job with all of our concerns. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, if we're all set, we can go ahead and sign off. Want to plug Nashville's various social media presences, and then for anyone that wants to check out more information or look at that live trafficker, all that can happen on TrafficCalming.Nashville.gov. There's a lot of information there that's about the program and up-to-date information on project statuses.
I would have one last question, if you don't mind, and sorry to keep you.
No, not at all. Yeah, we can. Yeah, totally fine.
Will the actual NDOT website be updated to indicate that the ballot postcards have been disseminated, for the lack of a better term? Or maybe you've already covered this. What source might we consult? Say we go out of town and have our mail held for 2 months while we're in the south of France. We can get on something to see that ballot has been sent out. And, if we haven't received one, or if we want to check with a neighbor to confirm that they've received theirs, how will we know once those ballots are sent? Obviously, receiving one in the mail is proof positive, but absent returning to my south of France total hypothetical, where might we go to confirm that those have actually been sent out, and thus I suppose the balloting process is now open?
Yeah. So let me think I can drag this down onto the screen. Oh, it's working. Okay, so this is the live traffic calming tracker that we're seeing. What I've got here is Ben Allen Road, and it's yellow because the ballot is currently open. So when we send out the ballots for Cumberland, which is somewhere up here, Yeah, here we go. This will go from green to yellow. So right now we're in the like meeting and design phase. And then once we send those mailers out, it should turn to yellow. Probably not like the same day, but definitely like well within the 6-week window that it's open.
Okay, great. That's what I was asking, however poorly. Thank you.
Sure thing. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for your time this evening. Really appreciate the additional feedback we got. I've got a couple things to look into. But yeah, once we've finalized those plans, we'll get with NDOT, have them posted on the website, and then send the ballots out so that when they hit your mailboxes, you'll be able to jump online and take a look at what we came up with.
One last question, and I promise there's lots of people. Sorry, there's lots of our neighbors who own homes on Cumberland for whom English might not be their first language. Would the notifications that these folks receive be available in maybe languages other than English? And
yeah, so what we have on the postcards, we don't have like the full text in multiple languages, but we have the QR code on both sides, and on the front it says I think it says like your input is needed and then scan QR code. That is in English, Spanish, and Turkish. Those are the top 3 languages in Davidson County. And then once they get to the website, Nashville.gov is pretty user friendly in translating to just about anything that's spoken here. So we hope that that is sufficient to accommodate anyone where English may not be their preferred language. But we're not able to fit like all of the information in multiple languages on the postcard for obvious reasons. Anything else before we sign off?
Just thanks again for all your work.
Of course. Thank
Yeah,
you all.
appreciate it.
I do appreciate your time. Cool. Well,
thank you, David.
Yeah, of course. Y'all have an excellent night, and we'll hope to get these plans out for you pretty soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thanks.